On today's video, we continue the adventure with Indiana Jones Adventure Series Wave 2.
It's morphin' time!
Hello, this is Soundout here. Today we're looking at the 5 figures that make up Wave 2 of the Adventure Series, as well as the Skull Temple Build and Artifact. Let's begin. Alright, we're going to start with the Temple of Doom Indiana Jones. This is kind of the iconic look for Temple of Doom, the ripped shirt, the machete, you know, that kind of look to him. I think that on the box render, you'll see here, the face looks pretty decent. You know, nice beat up Indy. We will see how the final figure turns out. Nice artwork on the side here, as always. You can see very good. I love whoever the packaging artist for this was. He did an incredible job. This whole line has looked beautiful. On the side here, you can see the build a artifact for the Skull Temple. You've got that going on there. And then on the back, yeah, it's just going to show you everything we're going to talk about. So let's take a look at Temple of Doom Indy. All right, so here he is. Let's talk about the face sculpt, because I think something was a little bit lost in translation. I do like the details of the blood they put around the lip and the cheek. It's definitely a lighter application, but looks pretty decent. I think the expression is kind of weird. He's a little bit gruntled. I mean, this is after he was hypnotized, poisoned, and then trying to make his way across the bridge, and Ram was just not having it. So, you know, Indy's kind of beat up by this point of the movie. What's cool, though, is we do have a new torso for him with the exposed skin underneath, and then the open shirt, which is an overlay piece, and then the new one sleeve look going on. And I like that they gave it kind of a dirt wash to it. I also like the actual cuts in the back. It's very cool, because this is sort of the thing, is that this line has a lot of Indiana Jones variants, so making them distinctive, I think, is very important. And they did a really good job making this look right here. I will say that in general, he is kind of lacking any dirt or sweat on his actual body. It comes to see only on that, and his pants are also pretty clean, but they did apply a bit of paint wash here and there. Plus, we do get a new knee with the cut open pant leg there, which is pretty cool. And I do like that the shoes even have kind of that dirt texture to it. They kind of made them look grungy. Of course, you know, if you make them grungier, paint budget and stuff. They also gave him a new hand here with the bandage on it, which is pretty good. So you got that going on. It actually is painted and molded all the way across, which is great. And yeah, this hand over here I think is actually new, because we didn't have a gripping hand on that side. Kind of had that like weird open hand. In general, like the gun belt and everything is about the same as what we've seen before, including the way that the whip attaches. But I did notice that, unlike with the Raiders Indy, where the whip attachment was open, this came packaged closed, so that way it's a little bit easier to pop that back in, though it's still a pain in the butt. And just like I showed on the previous ones, you want to kind of get in and up there and then push it closed to get it on his belt. But yeah, over to that, he's a pretty good base figure. Now, articulation-wise, he's a little bit different, because he does have, you know, of course, the neck joints that we sort of expect. The shoulders, he's got the in and out, he's got the elbow, he's got the rotation, he's got the ball-jointed wrists, which you can see here, how they work. And then he's got an actual torso, he's got an ab crunch in there, because you have those extra joints, but because it's an overlay piece, you can manipulate them, though it doesn't really bend as much as another version of Indy in this wave. Hips move out, forward, not so much back, thigh swivel, knee swivel, ankle pivots forward, back, left, right. So you got that kind of standard articulation going on, but overall I think pretty good range in general. Now, for comparison's sake, here he is with Raiders Indy. So you can see that they have a similar hat to design, but it is a different head, and then the actual torso bodies are different. But the gun belt is about the same, and then like the legs are about the same except for that knee. But they are, you know, they are scaled correctly. It's not like one version of Indy is taller or shorter than the other one. Accessories-wise, you do get his bag. We'll see later that you may want to swap this out for a different version, but the one he does include is the same as the Raiders Indy. It's just the kind of standard bag that goes over the shoulder, fits on the hip like that. Speaking of standard stuff, he does come with the pistol, which you can put in the holster and he can hold, even if he doesn't have a trigger finger on it. Here's the thing, he actually didn't have his pistol during the scenes in this movie. There's actually a famous callback to the Raiders scene where he pulls out the gun to fight the Cairo swordsman instead of fighting him with the sword thing. And then in Temple, he runs into 2 guys with swords, and so he goes to pull out his gun and it's not there. So they included the gun, but you really don't need the gun for this look of Indy. He also comes with this famous whip, though it does kind of fit loose in his hand. And another thing where I'm like, It's a good inclusion because that way you have it, but I don't think he used the whip that much when he looked like this. I kind of remember him carrying the Sankara stones and the machete, but you do get the whip there. But more importantly, you do get the coiled whip where you can have him either having it on the belt like that, or you can have it gripped in the hand, which is kind of what I prefer in this instance. So here you got the famous machete, though on mine it's a little bit warped because of the paper bag that all the accessories came in. It holds pretty good in his hand. And I did remember, after I shot that last sequence, I'm like, oh, when did he use the whip? Yeah, he used the whip, not so much, but there is a famous shot of him holding the machete in one hand and the whip in another, and you can see that the whip just does not fit in these hands very well. And you can have him kind of going like this and then doing his Han Solo crowd of stormtroopers moment and running away from the cult guys. So you got that going on, but yeah, that whip does not want to stay. And also, this hip is very loose. If you guys notice how just... Woo! Yeah, we're getting mold degradation a little bit. Kind of a bummer, but yeah. Of course, you can use the two hands here that hold the machete, so you can have Indy ready to strike down the bridge, saying, Molaram, prepare to meet Kali in hell. Now, for me personally, I'm going to have him kind of in that casual stance from the original poster, and I'm going to go off memory here, and we're going to compare my work here right now. Let's see how I did. I went off memory of that original Temple of Doom poster. I don't know how close I got, but I guess we'll find out when we do the edit. The last accessory is the jaw to the skull temple itself, which we will see more as we build up this wave. So Temple Indy is a solid figure of an iconic look of the character. I do like that it does come with extra accessories, even if the whip is not as used with this look and the gun isn't used at all. At least you have those for other versions of Indy you may have. So next up, we have the hypnotized Indiana Jones when he was forced to drink the blood of Kali in Temple of Doom. Pretty interesting choice for a figure. I don't think anyone's top pick, but it's a cool figure nonetheless. You can see nice artwork there of Indy when he was hypnotized, and then a nice shot of him there, looking kind of like that, and then him breaking out of the hypnosis later on in the sequence. And then on the back, of course, we've got, our layout of accessories, and then, of course, the Build an Artifact advertisement. So let's take a look at Hypnotized Indy. So here he is. The interesting part about this figure is I feel like this was like our substitute for getting somebody like Mola Ram, because we apparently can't get Mola Ram. But you can see we've got kind of a neutral face on Indy, kind of that serious expression. It is a hatless Indy, which is cool. You can see the extra lines that are painted on him, the weird rope thing that they put on the guy. And then he's got kind of some shading on the torso. This torso is pretty much the same torso as the one under the shirt for the Temple Indy, which makes a lot of sense. And then same thing for the arm being the same as well. So that makes, it's good parts reused. But this arm is new. These hands are also reused from previous Indies. The pants part is the same. They just don't have the gun belt attached, which is accurate to the design of the movie. And they also painted on the lashes on his back from when they were hitting him with the whip. So that's a really cool detail as well. Surprisingly, I think this is a much better figure than, I thought it would be. I thought it was supposed to be kind of like the boring one because it's just Hypnotized Indy. But it actually is pretty cool because they put the extra detail work into it. Articulation-wise, he's completely unrestricted, unlike some of the other figures. His head still really doesn't have like a super deep neck bend, but it does move. Shoulders move out. They butterfly a little bit. It's funny because you can actually see the full joint now, and you're like, oh, that really doesn't do a whole lot. 360 there. He's got elbow bend, elbow swivel, the wrist ball joint. The torso, it bends a little bit back, less so than forward, and it's kind of on a ball joint. And this is on a ball joint as well. Hips move out, forward, thigh swivel, knee swivel, ankle forward, back, left, right, that kind of thing. So that's pretty good. And I think in general, it's good to have this look. It is iconic enough, though it is our second Indy in this wave of Indiana Jones figures. Now the accessories are where this guy really shines, because here we have the Blood of Kali chalice, which is what he was forced to drink and how he got hypnotized by Mola Ram and his crew. So you got that going on. It's really cool. It's really nicely painted. There's some nice weathering to it. There's actually a surprising amount of paint budget on this accessory, so it looks really, really good, and I think that's pretty impressive overall. You also get the pole staff that he used to escape after he was not hypnotized anymore, so you can see it's got, very good length to it. It's not super bendy either. It's pretty sturdy. I can't quite get this hand to grip it without just stretching it completely, because for whatever reason they gave him the trigger finger hand on here. I kind of wish we had another wider grip like this one, so that way we could have him hold it a little bit easier. But he does hold it. You can't get him to hold it with one hand better, which works pretty good. Now this last piece is his bag. Now unlike the other bags, which were solid plastic, this one actually opens and is a softer material where you could try to squeeze something in it. Something like a Sankara stone maybe. You can actually fit, we'll talk about the Sankara stones in a moment, but you can actually kind of fit, I think, about 2 of them in there. You can't close it with 2, but you can definitely fit 1 and close it, but you can't quite fit all 3. But I like that we got a bag that could hold at least 1 Sankara stone in it, and it's malleable enough you can kind of squeeze it to get it out if you want. It's a little tight. It's a little tight, but once you get them out of there, they will sort of fall out like they did in the movie. Let's talk about the Sankara stones. So this figure's contribution to the Skull Temple is the Sankara stones. You get all 3 that we saw in the movie, not the 5 that existed, but the 3 that we saw in the movie. This one's kind of bland. This one here is also a little bit blander, but they are painted, which is really, really impressive for how tiny they are. And then there, of course, is the one that he was trying to get back to the village with the 3 lines on it on the front, which is really, really cool to see. But what's also cool is that you don't just get one set of these tiny stones that are blending into my table. There you go. You're not going to just get these one set of stones, but you get a second set that are in orange, and so it looks like they're glowing. And in fact, they are advertised as glowing in the dark. So you can see they're fully charged. You can see them glowing in the darkness, which is really, really cool. And yes, that bag does work in the hand of the Temple Indy if you want to have a more dramatic scene of him holding the bag over the bridge. So I think on his own, Hypnotized Indy isn't that exciting, but his accessories are pretty cool. Between the chalice, the bag, the Sankara stones, that's definitely really cool stuff, especially because it goes with other figures. I think it makes him a nice, well-rounded package, honestly. Next up, we have Indy's lovable sidekick, Short Round from Temple of Doom. So you can see here, nice render of him on the front. Really great artwork once again on the side, and I like that they got him hanging out of the bridge there, which I think is a cool, dynamic shot. On the back, of course, we've got, your usual accessory layouts and the build artifacts. So let's take a look at Short Round. So here he is as he's packed out of the package. Short Round is great. I love this character. He's so much fun in Temple of Doom. Ke Huy Quan does such a great job performing in this movie at such a young age. And this figure's a good capture of his likeness at that time, and I just really appreciate it. What's really cool, too, is unlike some of the other figures, we do get a cloth goods jacket, so that way we have one Short Round for multiple looks. You can take the jacket off here, and then boom, there he is. You can see his shirt, his pants, and his shoes. He looks pretty good. He is a unique mold, much like how the retro Short Round, which I guess I could bring him out, the retro Short Round here. He is, also unique mold because of his size. Same thing with the Adventure Series one, which I think is really cool. And I like that we got him. I'm very happy that we got him. So anyways, you can see really nice details overall, the sculpting, the way the shirt folds are. Articulation-wise, he's got the neck joint. I think his neck is slightly mispositioned here. But he's got the neck joint there, the top, the bottom. He's got a bit of a, forward back, a little bit of a waist turn. Shoulders move out, shoulders 360. Elbows bend, elbows rotate on a ratchet, no less. It's actually kind of a detented thing there. He's got kind of interesting wrists where they sort of move in and out, but not really, but they mostly just rotate. Hips that move out, hips that move forward, thigh swivel, knee swivel, and then forward and back and left and right ankle pivot, but nothing else beyond that. But I think that's a pretty good range. He's got pretty much the same as the adult characters in the line, which is pretty good. And then, like I said, you get his jacket, which is really nice to see. So you can get the jacket on him. The nice part about the jacket is it's a nice material. They've stitched it around the edges, which is good. It does look, this is a $25 figure, so it's not going to look as good as, like, more expensive lines in their soft goods. But I'm glad they went soft goods on this, so that way we could have both Short Rounds in one, and that doesn't impede his articulation because he only got single joints in there anyways. So that's pretty good. It does get bunched up kind of easily, but once you get it on his shoulders, you can see, you can move his arms, you can bend it. It does look a little big, but I think that's fine because most of his clothing looked a little big in the movie itself. But you got that. And then, of course, To top it all off, you got his legally distinct New York Yankees cap. Yeah, they didn't get the rights to the New York Yankees logo, so it's just an N. But he got his hat there, so you got to complete the look for Short Round, which I think is really, really cool. Now, with being so small, he does come with a bunch of accessories. First of all, he does come with the torch, which the Retro came with as well. And just like with the Retro, it's really hard to get him to hold it, though not impossible. You just got to kind of squeeze it into his hand there, and he can hold it. It looks okay. I think it looks just way too big for him. It's too large, and it feels like it strains the whole hand. You do get the knife here that was used with the voodoo doll. So you have the knife he can hold, which is pretty good. And then it's also cool because you do get the voodoo doll itself, which looks really good. So yeah, when Short Round went to take down the kid with the voodoo doll, he had the knife, he had this. So it kind of was a cool thing to include with Short Round there, so you can hold that as well. But probably the coolest accessory is we get a loose Indy hat. So in the movie itself, there's a scene where Short Round is just wearing his hat because he's imitating everything Indy's doing. And it's adorable, and I'm glad that we can do that here, which is really cool because you can get the hat on there. But then there's a secondary cool thing here. You could recreate things like Short Round giving Indy his hat back and that kind of thing. And then to further prove my point that they needed to mold the hat to the head to look proper, here's the hat and here's the head. So you can see just with his hair, it is sized properly, like that is the right size, but in order to push down his hair to get the hat on to look natural, since he does have, kind of fluffy hair, honestly, it would be really awkward. So that's why they've done it the way they've done it. But this fits on Short Round's head totally fine, but it doesn't look like they shrunk it for Short Round. It looks, large size, but I think because of Short Round's haircut and also the way that Short Round's hat looks, it's much easier to make that a removable hat than on Indy. And the last accessory for Short Round is his artifact piece, which is the back of the skull temple. It makes sense since this is, and it actually comes out for whatever reason. This piece here is the largest chunk, and it comes with the smallest figure. Short Round's a terrific figure of a terrific character, and he's pretty good overall. I do like that he comes with the multiple accessory options. You can have the coat, the different hat options, and all the accessories, though I do think that the actual accessories he can hold probably are not ones I'm going to display him with, just in general. They just don't feel like they work as a natural display object, but I like the options that we were given with the character. So now, breaking the trend from Wave 1, the last two figures are based on the Dial of Destiny, the most recent Indy film, probably the last Indy film. So we have Indiana Jones, of course. Here's some nice artwork of Harrison Ford in the movie. You can see old grumpy Indy there. I love that they picked the image where he uses the whip on all the people with the guns, and then he has to duck all the guns. Really cool stuff. Really do think that this is nice that we got some Dial of Destiny figures squeezed in here, and it's nice to see an older Indy as well. So here we have Dial of Destiny Indy. I had to lower my lights because this brim on his hat sits really low. You can see it's a pretty good head sculpt. I think it's probably the best Harrison Ford they've done, probably because this was, a more modern film, so they had, modern assets to work with, which I think is pretty good. He's got kind of the iconic look in this film. He's got, of course, the jacket. He's got the pants, the shirt, the belt. He doesn't have the gun. He doesn't have the gun belt, which I think is really interesting. It's also kind of a different time, too. He's, at this point, it's 1969. Maybe him carrying a pistol around wouldn't let him go a lot of places that it would have earlier. But in general, he wasn't really going into it as this is a combat situation. I'm just going to go pick up the dial and go home. And that's kind of Indy's look here. He's got kind of his iconic look, which I think is really neat. It is a little bit later in the film, because when he started in his iconic look, he was wearing the tie like he did in Last Crusade. This is supposed to be based on the accessories later in the dig site scene, which is pretty good. I'm not going to give any major spoilers here, so don't worry, because I know the movie hasn't hit streaming and home video yet, so until it does, I'm not going to talk spoilers. In the next video that has Dial of Destiny figures, probably we'll talk spoilers then. But for this, I'm just going to go, we're just going to talk about him as this. So, in general, I think it looks good. Shading looks good. All that good stuff. Let's get a quick comparison with him next to Raiders Indy. So here we have Indy from the first and the last movie. You can see, they reused the pants, reused the arms, reused the jacket, reused the torso, different head. That's fine. Also, I do like that the color scheme is a whole lot different here because it allows him to have a more distinctive look. It doesn't look so similar, but it looks evocative, and I think that's the entire point of the costume design to begin with. Now, what's cool is that you do get a bag, but this bag is a different mold. I will pull up the bag from the Temple Indy here, which you can see is a lot smaller. It's a much smaller bag, and this is similar to the Raiders one. And he also would wear it on this side, like he'd wear it facing this way, but this, he was wearing it this way, I believe. I'm going off memory and promotional images. But you can see the bag there, so it doesn't go under the jacket like they did it on the Raiders one. It goes over, which I believe is more accurate to this version of the character. The other thing they did, which is they improved the gun belt. Instead of having that little, like, loop thing, they just give you a coiled up whip that just plugs on. Why did we not do this from the start? This would have been much better, because if you have them hold it, like if you have them holding the whip coiled up, you hide that part. So it's totally fine. I much prefer that to the little, like, loopy system that doesn't really work. It just pegs on. Done. Like, it's clean. This is a different whip mold because of that, and he does not come with an uncoiled whip, which is kind of dumb. Like, what? You don't get an uncoiled whip with Indy, and then you put on the packaging art a scene with the uncoiled whip? Naturally, because he uses the same hands as the other Indies. Pop this in his hand. This is the one from the Temple Indy, which I wasn't going to use with him anyways. So at least there's a place to get a whip. But yeah, you can do that. He can hold it. It's just weird that he doesn't come with one. It's a very weird exclusion. Another weird exclusion too is the fact that he doesn't come with, like, say, half of the Dial of Destiny, and like Jurgen Vollner come with the other half. That would have been really cool. But nope, we don't get any dials itself, which is kind of a bummer. What we do get is scene-specific accessories for the only version of Dial Indy we're getting. You get the flashlight here, which is, again, from the cave sequence. And then you get the backpack of tools and gear for going through that cave. And it just goes on over his shoulders. And this will match another figure in this wave, the last figure of the wave. But I do feel like this is kind of neat because you do get sort of what we have here. And I do understand that this was, like, based on, like, the first promo image for the movie, which was from the cave scene where he's got the flashlight and the backpack. And I do appreciate that he has different accessories than all of the other Indies, because all the Indies sort of just are like gun, whip, hands. He's got some variety to him. He also has the same articulation. I didn't go over that. But the thing that's kind of a bummer is that this is kind of the pose he's stuck in. If you just buy Dial Indy, he doesn't really have any action stuff. And even if the promo image was all they were working off of, if he's got the whip, you could give him the uncoiled whip. You know what I mean? That's the part that's weird. And if the budget couldn't fit it, I don't know if we needed the backpack and the flashlight. It's cool. It's a good variety. But if you are going, I want just a Dial of Destiny Indy, and I don't want to buy any other Indies, you're kind of up a creek without a whip. And that's a bit of a bummer. Luckily for me, since we have so many Indies and I have all the Indies, I can move parts around. That's not a problem. But it is a little bit of a weird figure in that sense. What's also fun is his artifact piece is a giant snake, because this is the snake statue that goes on top of the Skull Temple. It's cool. But the thing is that it's funny that he includes a snake because of how much Indy hates snakes. But also, he didn't actually encounter a snake in the movie. They worked his fear in another way, but he didn't actually encounter a snake. But it's kind of funny because if you look at just the accessories, you don't know this is part of, like, the top of something. You're like, oh, he comes with a big snake to fight, which is cool, but he doesn't come with a whip to use against it. So yeah, I mean, overall, this is kind of a weird figure, and I think this is why I kind of talk through it instead of cutting through it, because it's a little strange. I like having it, though, and I definitely, it's kind of a little awkward as well that we go Crusade, Dial of Destiny, we don't get any Crystal Skull stuff. A little bit of a bummer, but it is a nice figure. It's just a little bit weird on the accessories. And our last figure of the wave is Helena Shaw from the Dial of Destiny. Brand new character here, looking pretty cool. Again, once again, love the packaging art. Really captured the likeness of the character. You can see her here. It is specifically based on the scene where she's going in the cave with Indy. This is probably the template for the two figures themselves. And then there she is on the back. And of course, the artifact piece stuff on the side. So here is Helena. Helena's an interesting character because she's sort of the antithesis of Indiana Jones. She does a lot of the same things he does. She sneaks around. She breaks into stuff. She's looking for artifacts. But she's looking for artifacts to sell, not to preserve them in museums or for any of the good reasons that Indy does his stuff, aside from being an adrenaline junkie like he is. And so I think that makes it kind of an interesting dynamic in the film itself. And so for that, I'm excited to see her figure here, especially because she is a major character in the movie. You can see pretty good likeness, I think, overall. They do a really good job capturing the characters in general. She's got the tied shirt look, which looks pretty good. I like the fabric sculpting. She even has the painted ring on her finger there, which is really cool. And then you got the pants, and then the boots, and then the laces, and all that nicely sculpted. However, I found that she is the one that won't stand. She constantly tips forward, and it's because of her like really small feet, and she's got really poor balance as an action figure. And the unfortunate part is that she's also lacking in the articulation department. So while she has the normal neck range up here, the bottom neck basically is pointless. The shoulders move out, the shoulders 360, no in and out. The elbow bends, the elbow rotates. She's got the old style wrists where they pivot down and up and then left, and they rotate left and right. She got the waist swivel, she got the hips, she got the forward, no thigh swivel. That's just a solid chunk of plastic, which throws off her stability. So she's got a knee, and the knee rotates, and she's got an ankle, and the ankle pivots. But without being able to just adjust this, which is kind of like where the weight comes in because of the bunchiness of the pants, she's really hard to pose because she kind of tends to fall right over no matter what you do. So like if you try to counterbalance her weight, she has to look really awkward to stand, and she's not super stable. She's the most unstable figure. And the unfortunate part is this seems to be a trend going forward with Hasbro Lucasfilm figures because their upcoming Black Series General Syndulla is also missing a thigh swivel. And look, if the Hasbro, if Hasbro's having to pay so much licensing fee to Lucasfilm where we're not able to get a basic articulation cut and a thigh swivel anymore, you gotta go back to the drawing board because this is getting really bad. The cutbacks in the Lucasfilm specific figures are bad. The Indy figures have been going strongest with the accessory counts, but man, the Star Wars stuff has been rough. And seeing this, even in this line, I think she's the only one that has this problem. I don't like seeing it because this is completely restrictive. Even McFarlane toys, which don't have a natural thigh swivel, have some adjustment there to help counterbalance the figure. And if more figures are not going to have thigh swivels, might as well not give them any articulation at that point because it's really throwing off her weight and her balance. It makes her a very frustrating figure to deal with. In addition to that, just like with Indy, she comes with the backpack from the cave scene, and that's pretty cool. It matches the scene, but as the only version of Helena, I kind of wish we would have gotten a bit of a different look maybe, and something more exciting than this, and the same exact flashlight that Indy comes with, which she holds better than Indy. Indy has trouble holding it around his trigger finger hand, but she has a trigger finger hand, no guns, no weapons, just that. It's the unfortunate downside of trying to get figures made for a movie by the time the movie comes out, since toys have a little bit higher of a production cycle than a big budget movie. But I think just in general with Lucasfilm stuff, especially with Indy, most of the stuff is practical. I don't know why this wasn't coordinated a little bit better for the Dial of Destiny figures. But in general, Helena is nice, but the lack of the thigh swivels and the lack of interesting accessories kind of drags her down a whole lot, which is a bummer because this is the only figure of the character we're getting. That being said, she does come with the last piece of the skull temple, which is the front skull. So here's all our parts for the skull temple itself. We're going to put it together like so. So we'll put the lower jaw on first. We'll put the upper skull part on next. So it kind of squeezes all together there. You can see there you go. There's the skull part. Pop the snake on the top. Boom. There it is. And then we get to the stones. And this is where the problem comes up. So if you may notice, there's these little indentations in the nose and the two eyes for the stones. I believe the nose one was the tall one. Was it the tall one in this one? No, that one's too big. You just have to kind of fit them where they fit. So you fit that. That fits fine. But then if you're not careful, they'll fall right into the thing. And by say not careful, I mean they're just going to roll out of there. So the problem is, this is kind of a bummer. I really liked the Ark, and I really like the idea of this skull temple. But like, to get them actually to stay in their little divots and not fall through, yeah, I don't know. I think the divots needed to be a little bit deeper on these, so that way they could actually work better. But there you go. you can do that. Of course, the glow-in-the-dark ones fit in the same spots, so I'll just pull those out. Let me put these on off camera. I don't want to deal with them on camera anymore. And then there it is with the glowing ones. I do like that the glowing ones look glowing even without the glow-in-the-dark effect going on, and I think that looks cooler than having the standard stones in there. And that's what they look like glowing in the Skull Temple. So while I thought Wave 1 was a slam dunk, Wave 2 is a bit of a mixed bag. The Skull Temple is definitely a cool accessory, and I'm glad we got it. Though again, the Sankara stones being able to fall through the eyes, kind of a bummer. I wish the indents were maybe a little deeper. That might have solved it. And then at least the good part is they fall in and they fall back out the bottom. You don't have to take it apart to get them out, which is good. There's like a little slot down there, so maybe that's intentional. Short Round, Temple Indy, they're great. I have like no complaints with them. Hypno Indy, he's a little boring in comparison, but his accessories are cool. And then these two figures definitely got hit by the movie was in production when we made these syndrome, and I just wish they had more going on. I like them. I'm glad we got them. I just wish we would have gotten them later in the production cycle and could have gotten some more things from the movie. They're a little more iconic, like the dial itself, that kind of thing. So this is Wave 2. Wave 3 will be mostly Last Crusade based with a couple of Dial of Destiny characters to kind of round that out a little bit. And then we're also going to have, there's one more Raiders of the Lost Ark exclusive I'm waiting to come out, and then I'll be doing a video on that. So 2 videos are left for this line. The Raiders of the Lost Ark exclusives, and then Wave 3, which will be coming before the end of the year, hopefully. And I am going to keep doing that, even though these videos haven't been performing super well on the channel. So to make sure that this video gets a little bit more love, I'd appreciate you hit the like button, hit subscribe and the notification bell if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below telling me which is your favorite figure of the wave, or your favorite indie character that didn't get a figure. It's kind of a bummer we got, you know, several Temple of Doom indies, 1 Short Round, and no Willy. I understand the Mola Ram problems because of the cultural problems of the movie and the lack of cultural sensitivity at the time, but Willy would have made a nice way to round out the trio there. Sort of like Teddy would have made a nice trio over here with Dial of Destiny, but that's a discussion for Wave 3. I think in general, I do love the line, but this wave is a little bit weird, especially because 3 of the figures are indie, and then you get these other 2 people. It's not as much variety as some of the others. But on that note, stay tuned for future videos. Join the Soundout Discord protocol in the link below. Check out my live streams Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern here on this YouTube channel. You can also find me across social media at Soundout12. You can find my awesome graphic designer in the Discord or on social media at DarkClaw643. And you can find Hero Club at HeroClub.com for movie news and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.